Oscars. Oscars. Oscars, Oscars, Oscars. Did you watch it? Did you stay up all night to see the winners, the speeches, the in memoriam, and the razzle dazzle? Did your film win? Did a film you despise take home the gold? Did you get excited waiting for the presenters to open the envelopes and say, and the winner is? No? Me neither. I'm in the UK and it's on in the early hours and I had better things to do, like sleep early to get up at 4 a.m. to catch a train to go into London for a rare day's work in the office. It's the biggest event of the year in Tinseltown, and once again the stars came out to see who was honoured and be seen by the myriad paparazzi and millions around the world who could be bothered to tune in. Apparently, 1 million fewer people in America watched this year than last, continuing a trend of declining viewers that has been going on for years. It had already gotten off to a rocky start, with the film Emilia Perez garnering a whopping 13 nominations, despite being one of those flicks that nobody saw, let alone the subject matter, and that it was a musical with at least one song that was comically awful. And that was before the controversy of past tweets of the nominated lead actress. It must have been a bit of a moral quandary for the voters not to vote for a trans woman because they were a bigot. Well, the ceremony happened, and it seems to have gone on without any hitches, slaps, or anything controversial and insufferable speeches that can be really held up as evidence for the industry being out of touch or deeply satisfied with its own sense of righteousness. From what I can tell, as an outsider, it seems to be a good reflection of the current state of Hollywood as a whole. Bland, production line, glitzy on the surface, and pretty much forgettable. Clearly this is not a ceremony that's going to be remembered, whether it be for memorable speeches, controversial moments, or performances that are either spectacular or cringe. The awards mostly skipped over the big blockbusters, with just a few of the technical ones going to the big ticket items. But the bulk of the statues went to those little films that don't get the media attention when they come out, but suddenly become important when the nominations are released. Dune Part 2 won for sound and visual effects, and Wicked won for production design and costumes. The Substance won for hair and makeup, and Conclave for adapted screenplay, but these could be argued as being halfway between blockbuster and worthy independent. The rest went to the critically acclaimed releases, with Anora dominating with 5: Best Film, Best Director, Best Leading Actress, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Film Editing. It's a story of a stripper who impulsively marries the son of a Russian gangster and has to deal with various issues with his family. I never saw it, so that's all I know, and I couldn't be bothered to read the blurb on Wikipedia in detail. I do vaguely remember seeing the trailer, and at the time I thought it looked like an interesting film to watch. I've been making more of an effort to go to the cinema recently, and not just for the big releases, so it looked like something worth £9.99 for the recliner seats at View at Gunwharf Quays. And then something happened. I forgot about it almost immediately. Obviously I have no idea when that happened, but I'm pretty sure it was wiped from my databanks as soon as whatever film I'd paid for had started. I think it was Megalopolis. I completely missed it when it came out, and it's not as if I wasn't checking my View app to see what was on. It just wasn't heavily pushed beyond the standard trailer releases and a few niche critics, as far as I know anyway. According to Box Office Mojo, it grossed $41 million worldwide, which puts it 78th overall, and a perfect candidate for Hollywood's love affair with throwing awards at little films that don't get the big marketing budgets or attention from access and legacy media. It's a recurring criticism of the Academy that the voters make their artistic choices for films that nobody has heard of, let alone bothered to go and see. Capote, Lincoln, 12 Years a Slave, Crash, and Nora Parasite are all films that cleaned up at the awards, but hardly anyone saw, and even fewer can remember much about. None of these films have seeped into the cultural zeitgeist like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Lord of the Rings, Titanic, or The Silence of the Lambs. You could make a case for Crash, I suppose, but only because of polls rating the worst or least worthy Best Picture winners. However, this year the criticism isn't really fair. Look at Box Office Mojo for the list of the films by worldwide gross. How many of them do you truly remember? I'm not talking about the ones you saw, I mean in general. Deadpool and Wolverine, Wicked, and Dune Part 2 are probably the most memorable, while Beetlejuice, and Gladiator 2 are mostly known for being disappointing. But what about the rest? Despicable Me 2, Moana 2, Godzilla x Kong, Kung Fu Panda 4, YOLO, Successor, The Wild Robot. Do any of these top 20 films ring any bells? Were they any good? From what I can see, They were a mixture, but nothing that truly stands out as exceptional or even noteworthy. Hollywood is in somewhat of a funk. Films are still bringing in decent gross, but budgets seem to be spiralling out of control for no reason. So much for the natural efficiency of the business world. It wasn't that long ago that a blockbuster with a huge budget and massive star power could be seen as having artistic merit. Think of Titanic or Apollo 13. And even more recently, some films were regarded as a big event. Infinity Wars and Endgame come to mind, but not anymore. Now films are just a product and content. They are made and released. People either watch them or they don't. Some are good, some are bad. Some are in the cinema, some are direct to streaming. Anticipation now seems to be a thing of the past. Some are talked about in the run up to the premiere, but these days it seems to be mostly for the wrong reasons. Will the next Bond be a woman? Is the next Disney remake spreading a message that has been done to death already and shown to be a big turn-off for paying audiences? Did this or that actor say something or other for which they should be condemned and cancelled? And then the Oscars come along and give out their statues to so-called worthy films that are often tagged as Oscar bait. Critics complain that the quality of movies has plummeted, that nothing coming out is any good or made by people who don't seem to have any love for the art. This may be true, I don't know, but I think the problem is a little more nuanced. Take a look at the list for US domestic box office for 1997. Look at the films on that list. I bet you know something about a few of them, even if you didn't see them. Men in Black, Liar Liar, Titanic, Con Air, Jerry Maguire, Tomorrow Never Dies, Starship Troopers. What about 1994? The Lion King, Forrest Gump, True Lies, Speed, The Mask, Mrs. Doubtfire, Schindler's List, Stargate, Ace Ventura, Pulp Fiction, Dumb and Dumber, Four Weddings and a Funeral, The Crow. Going to the cinema that then, before the days of 50-screen multiplexes, was an unmitigated joy. I bet you know something about a few of those films, even if you never saw them, or only saw them once. There was a time when movies could truly impact culture, even in small ways, like one line being quoted again and again, to the point that decades later, memes are created from them to make some sort of point on social media. But what about now? What can you tell me about Kung Fu Panda 4, or Bad Boys Ride or Die? What about John Wick 4, or Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny? Anything to say about Wonka, Dungeons and Dragons, or the Marvels? Even if we go back a few more years to the more successful big releases, can you say anything about Avengers Endgame if, like me, you didn't bother with it? What about Infinity Wars, Jumanji The Next Level, Shazam, Black Panther, Deadpool 2, or Wonder Woman? When was the last time a big budget blockbuster had a wide social impact? It's hard to say with any true objectivity. Given that I'm hurting towards 50, I wouldn't dare say I have my finger on the pulse. But I do pay some attention. The Lego Movie from 2014 had that song, as did Frozen in 2013. There was Inception in 2010, The Hangover in 2009, and The Dark Knight in 2008. From what I can tell, you have to go back at least 11 years to find a film that had an impact beyond its viewing audience. But the little films still keep coming out and winning all the awards and then disappearing, just like they've always done. Those films have continued to do what they've been doing for decades, presenting good quality productions with excellent acting, writing, editing and directing. They give everyone involved a sense that they have achieved something special, and I agree with them. Just because they make no money doesn't mean they don't have value. There are people out there who care about the art and want to make films like that, whether it be art house or socially conscious. These films haven't changed. It's the blockbusters that have changed. The big budget films no longer have the impact they used to. So far, Captain America Brave New World has grossed $340 million in the worldwide box office, which sounds good, until you learn about the insane reshoots and the estimated final production cost, which means it would need to hit close to $1 billion just to break even. And that is what it's primarily known for, an appalling production process. What about the upcoming releases? Snow White, Minecraft, Michael, Thunderbolts, Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, Karate Kid's Legends, How to Train Your Dragon, 28 years later, F1, Shrek 5, Superman. Are you excited? Are you buzzing? Are you marking your calendars? No? Of course not. Gone are the days when a new Bond film was announced or a new Star Wars or Star Trek film was waited for with endless anticipation. The next superhero movie is now met with a big old shrug, with everyone's expectations so low that they just don't care. Even the good ones, like Dune, haven't sparked a renaissance of any kind. People just don't care anymore. Some critics blame streaming only content, but I don't buy that. Most of those films leave even less of an impact than cinema releases, though some films nowadays require homework via a £7 a month subscription to a streaming service that no one really wants. There are many reasons for blockbusters losing their magic, and it's not just that many are terrible. The two Dune films were widely acclaimed, but no one was really talking about Part 3 with bated breath. Certainly not like they did with the Star Wars prequels. Interconnecting Star Wars and Marvel's films with streaming series shows that Disney isn't as serious about paying cinema viewing as it used to be. But it still has money to keep and needs those ticket sales, especially as streaming isn't bringing in the dollars it had anticipated. More knowledgeable people than me have already given breakdowns of why this is the case. Generic stories, poor productions, audience apathy, endless and unimaginative tropes are just some of the reasons, but are certainly many, many more. Maybe it's just a cycle that will turn around naturally, and maybe it's a good thing too. There are plenty of films out there with interesting premises, quality acting, great scripts, and interesting styles. And perhaps it's a good thing that the Oscars give these films the major artistic awards instead of the heavily marketed big IP releases that get shown on thousands of screens. Either way, those films haven't changed, and maybe it's time to be a little bit pretentious and watch those actors be intense and the directors be deeply thoughtful, and let the producers and studios know that when they throw hundreds of $millions at a film, they can and should do better.